Canadians are bracing for a
COVID-19
dramatic
is
change
now
in
the
everyday life.
The first death of an American.
COVID-19.
The 2020 Summer Olympics, now the latest major sports cancellation caused by the global COVID-19 pandemic.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight for the fourth session of the Bison Transport Sport Leadership Series. Tonight's topic, embracing equity, diversity, and inclusion. My name is Sara Orlesky. I'm so happy to be the host of this series with you, and I'm hoping that this is the fourth time that you have joined us in this series. But if not, just quick reminder that you can go to the Sport Manitoba website and see our earlier sessions. We've dealt with getting girls back into sport with everything that we've been dealing with this pandemic, building on the strengths of Indigenous youth, as well as calling the shot and leading the way, looking at women in the sports leadership role. This series brings together inspirational leaders from all areas of sport. We've had players, coaches, had those that are on the administrative side, as well as academic, to share their personal and professional stories, offer valuable advice and guidance, and hopefully give you some tips and some ideas both for on the field of play and off. I would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we work, live, and play are the traditional lands and waterways of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, as well as the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties made here and are grateful to work, live, and play on this land. Welcome to all of our attendees, and in particular, our friends at Bison Transport. We're excited to have all of you with us here tonight. Sport Manitoba, in partnership with Bison Transport, aspire to increase female engagement in sport by providing an informative, inclusive, and inspirational experience through these series. Here is another look at the title sponsor, Bison Transport.
If there's some young women out there who really need some extra advice or support, I would just say keep going. That's the biggest one, because there's going to be so many barriers in your way, and we are good enough. We can do all these things.
Love what you do and do what you love.
Make sure that you don't let anyone else define you or put you in a box.
For every one person that's rude or mean or a bully, there's going to be 100 people that are going to support you.
I said the biggest thing is to not limit your scope and not limit your dreams. Know inside yourself what you can do and surround yourself with people who help you achieve those goals.
So thank you to our friends at Bison Transport. We're going to get to our panelists in just a moment. So excited to see who we have in store for us and to introduce you to them in just a moment. But a couple of housekeeping notes that we want to take care of first. Internet quality. Sometimes it can be an issue for all of us for it. So we wanted to let you know that if you start to find that your internet quality is poor, it's buffering a little bit, there are options for you. You can click on the click here to switch stream to view at a lower bandwidth. Now that'll impact your video quality, will not affect though the audio. So that's great to know. But then also, if you're having any technical issues, we have people here to help. You can click on the request help bubble on the bottom corner of the webcast page, and your help request will be emailed back to the email address you provided when you registered. Throughout tonight's session, we encourage you to ask questions. That's one of the best parts about this series, is not only getting to hear the stories and the impact of our panelists, but then also the ability to engage with those of you that are watching here at home. Ask questions. You can do that through a variety of different ways, whether it be the question box on the right side of the webcast or through social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, tagging Sport Manitoba and using the hashtag LeadHERship, with her being all capitals. Sport Manitoba respects, honors, and celebrates the diversity of self-identity and self-determination. Tonight, we will use the acronym 2SLGBTQIA+ and acknowledge the importance of diversity, intersectionality, equity, and inclusion that transcends the acronym. We invite and honor the language that you identify with throughout the session. So let's get started. Let's meet our speakers. And I really wish that somewhere I need to add this maybe before the fifth session, a drum roll, some capacity to get things going with this, because I think that that's what I'm missing right now. I'm gonna make a mental note to try to add that for the next one, because these people definitely deserve it. Anastasia Bucsis was born, and Anastasia B, for there, if you can give a wave, was born and raised in Calgary, Alberta. She started speed skating at the age of 4. Within her 24-year speed skating career, she represented Canada at 2 Olympic Games, 6 World Championships, and 46 World Cup starts. She was the only athlete from North America to come out publicly in opposition to Russia's anti-LGBTQ+ laws before the Sochi Olympics back in 2014. She now lives in Toronto. She works for CBC Sports, does a fantastic job, and she also hosts Players' Own Voice, the podcast. If you haven't listened to it, highly suggest that you find it. It's a great podcast. You get to hear from so many different athletes, again, in their own voice, and various Olympic digital shows as well. She just came back from Tokyo 2020. She is preparing, because it never stops for her, to get going over shortly to Beijing in 2022. She is a passionate advocate for mental health issues, eradicating homophobia in sport, and telling the stories of Canada's high performance athletes. Betty Kassa arrived in Canada from Ethiopia in 2015, quickly fell in love with playing soccer, having never played before. She coaches Newcomer girls soccer teams with the Winnipeg Newcomer Sport Academy, an immigrant refugee community organization of Manitoba. She brings with her great coaching skills and also relates to athletes, as she has lived experience with participation in sport in Winnipeg. Additionally, Betty is part of the WNSA Women in Sport Leadership Initiative, supported by Canadian Women in Sports. She's currently studying recreation management and community development at the University of Manitoba. And last but certainly not least, Lily Rich, a grade 11 student who is involved in youth outreach and advocacy across Manitoba. In 2020, they began working with Accessible Sport Connections Manitoba, a nonprofit meant to facilitate access to sport and recreation for people with disabilities. She hosted ASC's inaugural youth event, Disabled Youth Talking. They have spoken to youth of all ages about anything from navigating parasport to how people in wheelchairs get on airplanes. Lily is also a member of Parastorm Swim Club and is extremely passionate about creating inclusive environments for youth with disabilities. So a big welcome to the three of you. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening tonight to speak with us. And we're going to get.
I could have given you the drum roll. That's what I should have done. I'm sorry.
I should have asked. Now that I think about it, I should have asked for everyone to contribute in with it. So that I'm adding that though to session 5 if you all log on for it. I want to get started with this because there are so many interesting different angles that I think we plan to look at tonight. But I want to talk first about just your sports in general that you three have played, coached, and participated. And, Betty, I'm going to start with you. Just what is it about soccer that attracted you to the sport when you came over here, not having played it growing up?
So yeah, I came here when I was 15, like you mentioned it. And being here was no experience. I didn't think I was gonna make it to any soccer or any sport in general, because I thought that you have to have experience to play, and I was old to not play because I was 16 by then, and Like there was no physical literacy. Like I did not know how to do so many things, like because I did not learn it when I was younger. And I thought I was behind from people like Canadian that been playing soccer or that been playing sport. And I think I picked soccer because it's a group thing. It's a group sport, and that it helped me to be socialized with people, to learn a language, like being around someone from also like different country, different culture, different background. That's how I created also, like that's how I started making friends, because without that I also had language barrier and it was very difficult and had so many barriers. And for me to be in that soccer team or to play soccer was like I escaped from all of my barriers, from like I had so many anxiety and I have so many like housework that I had to deal with, and being on that field, I forgot about everything like that was going on in my life, and I was just focusing on playing and engaging and having fun, and also like creating a safe space for myself. So that also helped me, like just being the group sport, because if it was individual sport, I would have to work hard by myself, train myself. They being able to accept in the community and accepted by people that I played with, my teammates, helped me like see the different version of myself. And I'm always forever grateful for that. Thank you.
Lily, for you, what was it about the water?
Yeah, I mean, I started playing sledge hockey growing up, like every good Canadian. I started in a sledge hockey program and I loved it because when I first walked in, it was like a cornucopia of people that looked like me. And then once I switched over to swimming, it was the same thing, except now I didn't have anything that I needed to be in order to participate in the sport. There was no sledge that I needed to sit in. It was just me in the water. And that felt a little bit more freeing because it truly is just your own body in the sport. So if you do badly because there is something that you need to improve on. It isn't due to your own physical limitation. It's because you have the potential to grow. And having that ability to really take into account what your own body can do and what you think you need to improve on is so much more liberating, because you know that it's your own capabilities that's allowing that to happen.
Anastasia, I'm sure that's something that you can relate to.
Well, funny enough, I'm a terrible swimmer, Lily. So if you can give me some lessons, I'd be forever grateful. I'm not very good at soccer either, Betty. But just quickly, yeah, I was really privileged, to be honest. As you said, Sara, I'm from Calgary and I was born in 1989. And we had the 88 Olympics. So I was really privileged to have a lot of wonderful infrastructure, obviously, from the 88 Olympics. So I started speed skating at age 4. I've speed skated many a time in Manitoba, and it can be very cold in the winter, I will say that. But I was really, really lucky. Great infrastructure. I had a lot of wonderful women to look up to, like Katrina Maydone, Susan Ock, Cindy Clausen, Claire Hughes. You know, the list goes on and on and on. But I really struggled in and around the age of 19, 20, 21, 22, kind of my early 20s, when I started to recognize and accept my sexual orientation. I am gay, and I'm really inspired society right queer folk, but even 10 years ago it was very difficult for me to accept myself and to find kind of my footing, and it really eroded my mental health, deep depression, significant anxiety. And it really kind of was through sport that I realized, you know, I need to be my full self. I need to show up being my full self, because results, as lovely as they are, you can win races, you can lose races. And at the end of the day, the real fulfillment is only when you come to the line fully as yourself. So that has been kind of a driving passion and pillar in my life. But certainly there were a few dark years, and it was a long time to get to that acceptance of loving myself and realizing that being authentic, as much as that can be a little bit of a buzzword nowadays, is really the fastest way to success.
With everyone coming this evening from different perspectives, and everyone has different stories, and different histories that go along with it. But one of the themes, obviously, is inclusion, and talking a little bit about it, all of you in your answers so far as to what attracted you to your respective sports. What does inclusion mean to you? And maybe Anastasia, will start with you.
Oh gosh.
I know, sorry. I put you right on the spot, right off the hop.
That's good. No, it's good. Yeah, I think inclusion it's a great question, because we could probably talk literally for an hour about that. But just having the ability and knowing that you're safe to show up fully as you are. I think that we often at times think we have to be a certain way, or if we just win that soccer game, or if we make that team, or we win that race, we're going to be happy or fulfilled, or really, we kind of have this carrot dangling in front of us, and we keep chasing that rat race, which is a lovely thing. I mean, I'm not in any capacity saying not having big dreams, but certainly when I was a kid, I really thought, okay, if I just make the Olympics, or if I just make that team, or if I just skate this fast, then people will accept me, or I will accept myself. And it should be the exact opposite. It's really establishing a safe environment where people feel as though, regardless of, their age or their class or their gender or their sexual orientation, gender expression, that they're accepted and safe.
When you look at it, Lily, what does it mean for you, coming at it from a different, you've been very proactive in trying to create inclusive spaces. We talked about, I introduced you for youth athletes. What does it mean to you?
Ultimately, what it means is we need to get to a point where we don't need to make inclusion a priority. It should just be built into the spaces that we inhabit. And for disability, that can be twice as hard, because often what the issue is you physically cannot participate. And so looking at it from a physical angle, it's building spaces that people can actually thrive in. So making sure that spaces are accessible, making sure that we take the time to talk to athletes, making sure that we have their voices heard, but also making sure that we accept the whole of the athlete as we go through. Anastasia, I'm also queer as well, so it's wonderful to hear your story. And thinking about, how do we look at the intersection of disability and queerness? How do we accept that as a whole of an athlete and allow them to grow in a way that is conclusive to them being a better human and a better athlete? Because ultimately, we're raising better humans, not necessarily just athletes.
When you look at it, Eddie, I'll change it a bit for you, and just want to look about being inclusive and getting involved in sport, but also just from an idea of representation, what you think that means, to be able to see, for some of your athletes that you're coaching right now, for them to be able to see you come over to develop your love for the sport, to be a coach, to be integrated into that sporting community. How important do you think it is for athletes to be able to see that sort of representation?
I think that like them seeing me and them like my participants or the girls that I coach, them seeing me and hearing my story gives them hope, and they would love, like they start to do what they love. And because I started when I was 16, it doesn't mean they can't do what they love and they're old, or like they might not be accepted in the society or in the community. But it's just like them finding the right, I don't want to say the right community, but them finding and just expressing their feelings and like telling their story. That's how the community will accept them. Because if I tell you that I have no video that I can show you when I was when I was young, I have no experience, but I know for a fact, if you don't accept me, I will have no future playing any in the future. I would have no experience. You might bend the rules if you have rules in your sport or in whatever sport you're coaching. You might bend the rules for me because you know my story now. Just being open for, if you're a coach, let's say, open up for your students or whoever you're gonna coach, because they might have a different story and they want to if they don't want to be there, they wouldn't come and open up about their culture or their background, because sometimes it's hard because as a newcomer, people face like so many traumas and they want to skip that through sport, or they have a lot of free time when we get here because we honestly don't have anything besides school. And what are we doing in that free time we have? We maybe want to be physical active, but once we're physical active, that also helps us being mentally stable and emotionally stable. I think like me opening up and creating a safe space for those girls, make them comfortable and they will open up about their whatever is going on in their life. Just me creating a safe space for them is the biggest thing, I think. And I also want them to give back to the community once they pass that age and they don't want to play anymore. Then we can have more people like me play in the future, like more younger girls. And when it comes to inclusive, I remember going to this, we were invited, like when I was a newcomer, we were invited to this workshop, sport workshop, soccer workshop. There were like so many like Canadian and so many newcomer girls, like people like me, but they weren't playing together. So there was like Canadian in one circle and newcomers in the other circle, and they weren't interacting each other. So do you call that, okay, yeah, you invited us, but are we included? Like, I felt like it wasn't, like no one would talk to anyone. Like the Canadian, you know, like Canadians wouldn't talk to newcomers, newcomers wouldn't talk to Canadians. And it was like, okay, yeah, it's diverse, but it's not inclusive. And I think we need to understand between those two. And yeah, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Absolutely, for it. When think of the three of you, and just in the short time of listening, you can see that the three of you have very powerful senses of self and powerful voices. And so curious, and Anastasia, I mean, you host the Player's Own Voice podcast for it, but your voice for it, when did you find it, or have you always been like that? Because I think that it's so empowering to listen to people of all ages, genders, backgrounds, be able to tell not only their story, but try to make an impact for it, and to feel the confidence to be able to do that. Do you remember when you started to feel a little bit more comfortable with it and take ownership of your voice?
Yeah. And it didn't come overnight. I promise you that. You know, as I said, I'm from Calgary. I was born and raised very Roman Catholic, conservative. I had no gay friends, no queer friends. And so I really felt incredibly alienated. And I had a picture in my brain as to, you know, what it would look like. And I really struggled to reconcile those. And I'm embarrassed, you know, my hair is standing up because I'm embarrassed and vulnerable to admit that. But I do feel like there's power in vulnerability, especially sharing the struggles. And so it took me a long time. And finally, you know, I had mentioned it really eroded my mental health. Unfortunately, thoughts of suicide ideation almost every day. And then I finally just said, you know, I can't keep going this way. I'm not being the best version of myself in any capacity. And I was so lonely and so confused and struggling to come out of the closet that I kind of went, this is who I needed when I was young. And so if I can be that voice for someone, I really thought that was more powerful than anything I could have done skating around in a circle. So it certainly took me a few years, and those few years were not all that bright. There's some really dark, heavy times, but I really did think, you know, one person, as much as it's just me, like all I can do is be myself. And that is my power. That is Lily's power. That's your power. That's Betty's power. You have to bring yourself and show up fully to almost give other people permission to do the same. So really, I would say I publicly came out about 6 months prior to the Sochi Olympics. I did not realize that it would make headlines or, you know, be a real topic of discussion. But I remember being in Calgary, and I had asked one of our mentors that works for the Canadian Sport Institute in Calgary, and I said, I am so lonely. I'm so confused. I'm not enjoying skating because my personal life feels like I'm lying to everyone. And I said, you need to connect me with another, out athlete. And aside from Mark Tewksbury, she really couldn't name anyone. And so I just went, no, I have the power to change things. And yes, it makes me feel vulnerable, but I have to do this. So no kid that's going through this feels as lonely as I do right now. So I would say a few months before Sochi.
And what was the reaction?
It was overwhelmingly positive. I mean, you get a few haters on the internet, but that's how it is. The internet, don't listen, don't watch the comments. But it was overwhelmingly positive. And, I mentioned Mark Tewksbury. He, of course, came out in the late 90s, and he unfortunately, struggled with sponsors and people kind of pulling away. And I will say that within 15 years, because, I came out 2013, excuse me. That was not the experience that I had. So I was surrounded by love. It was a little bit overwhelming simply because, it was on the front page of the Globe and Mail, and my 92-year-old grandmother was having journalists call her. So that was a little bit overwhelming, but truly, it's probably the thing that I'm most proud of in my life. And if I helped any kid, then it's been worth it.
Absolutely. For it. Lily, when you look, I mean, there's just, there's so many things to talk about that I keep looking the time going. I wish that this was multiple hours for it. I wanted to ask, Lily, from your perspective of an athlete, young person with a disability specifically, when you're looking at being an athlete with a disability in sport, what barriers do you feel right now that you've been facing, that you're having to deal with?
Yeah, that's a great question. And let me emphasize, I am from immense privilege. I have been very lucky to have very good support systems. But in my experience and the experience of others, I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking for generally everyone. I find that a lot of what surrounds parasport is that the focus isn't on the athlete. It often shifts to the goodwill of the people whom are running the programs and are at the top, because they're seen as doing goodwill for these helpless children with disabilities. So it doesn't feel as though it's a legitimate form of sport or a legitimate form of community bonding. It just feels like you're receiving charity from some well-meaning adult. And while it is wonderful to have access to programs, and it is wonderful to have that ability to participate in sport, we need to make sure that athletes' voices, as is Anastasia's job, that athletes' voices are continually centered and are continually given the space to share their experiences, good or bad. Because if we don't give athletes the space to voice their opinions and their concerns and what they want to change and their dreams and their hopes, we don't give them any place to grow or end up in the sport. We end up sort of confining them to this world of recreational charity. And some people want that, but some people want to take that farther and want to get to that high performance level. And we need to let people do that and give them the tools and resources to achieve their dreams.
Okay, so where did your voice come from? Because I listened to you, and it's so hard is to imagine you're just grade 11.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Such wise words coming from you, and so well spoken, and you're obviously very passionate about it, knowledgeable on it. Where did your voice come from? And
that's a great question. And if I'm being honest, I'm still developing it. And what I would say is my voice started out when I was very young, out of pure necessity, because I couldn't move from my spot. I couldn't move from my chair. So I would start by screaming from my father from my little childhood bedroom, saying, "I need a snack," or "I need water." I would be screaming. And as I grew up, that sort of screaming voice started to transfer to school and transfer to sport, because some of my needs still weren't being met. So it turned into a coping mechanism in order to continue to have my needs met and make sure that I'm being well taken care of. So only recently, in the past couple of years, especially in COVID, have I had the opportunity to use my voice for an actual platform and an actual message to tell people what should be happening rather than just screaming to have my own needs met. And I'm very lucky to now be in that position where I don't need to scream for myself. I can scream and have actual conversations with others.
Inspiring. Let me tell you, I think I can speak for everyone, that you'll continue to just find your voice for it. I'm 41 and I'm still just finding, my voice with certain things and the comfort level with it. So it continues to evolve, I think, for everybody as we continue to get older and experience more. But you're certainly off to a fantastic start with it.
Grade 11.
I know.
Yeah, you can host the podcast if you want.
Please.
Betty, when you look at what you're trying to do right now, and when you're looking at the newcomer children that are over, and I mean the teenagers that you're dealing with and that you're coaching with your soccer teams right now, what are you trying to teach them? What is your important message to them right now?
I think a lot of newcomer came a background or society where they're told there are only male athletes, or only, men's play sport and females don't. And I want them to understand that, especially here in Canada, there's no such a thing. So I want them to keep your culture, but not everything. I want them to keep their culture. Yeah, I keep my culture as well. But being told that, oh, you don't play, you're supposed to help your mom clean the house, do the dishes. And instead of just doing that, try to educate your parents or whoever you're living with and tell them that it's okay if I play sport and I can do it, because at the end of the day, it's helping us mentally, physically, and emotionally. Even when I was playing, my dad would always question it that I was at soccer, because especially in Winnipeg, it gets dark so quick. At 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, it's dark. And sometimes to prove that I was at soccer, I would come with full of my jersey, my cleats, my soccer shoes, everything. Just to tell him that I was actually at soccer, because I live with my dad and he's always overprotective. And I understand from as a newcomer dad, of course, he's going to be very protective, but it's okay if I'm out there playing and come back, because he still has to trust me. But I don't know if he trusted me or not, but I would do extra things for him to know that I was actually at soccer. Because sometimes he'll be like, soccer at this time. And I'm like, Dad, don't you see me wearing the jersey? Don't you see me wearing, just to prove that I was at soccer. And also coaches connecting with my dad. So the coaches really had a really good connection with my dad, and they always called. They always came pick me up, with transportation, with snacks. They always provided all of those things. So when he saw the van outside, me getting dropped off by the van, he always was like, okay, yeah. Now he started, trusting me, and we built that trust, with my coaches, with myself, and that's how things went smoothly. And what I wanted to do also right now with the girls is we always go pick them up with the school bus when I work with Winnipeg Newcomer Sport Academy, and also with AirCom, Immigration and Refugee Community Organization of Manitoba. We always go pick them up, and we always try to invite some of the parents actually. Oh yeah, do you guys want to come with us? So we bring them with us to the games or to the practices, and they come in, they get to watch the kids play, because sometimes it's so hard for the parents to have that time, because especially being a newcomer parent, there's no lots of education, or there's no good job for them out there, and they'll have 2 to 3 jobs. Some of them are single mom, single dad. So just try to live life and try to make it out. Or just try to be try to provide. They're trying to provide food on the table and all of those things. Sometimes they might not have time, and us creating that opportunity for the parents to come and watch their kids play, that also builds trust with the organization we work with, and also trust between the parents and the daughter and the son. So just educating the parents and the players that are, oh yeah, okay, I know this is my culture, I'm not gonna do this. But sometimes it's okay, don't take all the cultures, have your culture, we respect your culture, but sometimes take the good things with you and the bad things, leave them behind. And learn from like there are good Canadian culture as well. So just take those and learn from those, because it really helps like moving forward.
So how is, I mean, the pandemic obviously over the last couple of years has impacted everybody, and the sporting community no different for it. So for you, Betty, how has the COVID-19 pandemic and all the restrictions, I mean, for those watching that are in Manitoba, obviously we've had a great deal of restrictions, and sport hadn't been for it. How has that impacted the way that you've approached things?
So first, I want to say I'm very lucky. I did not come when it was pandemic time, because I was 16 and I stopped playing by the age of 18. So 2 years. Imagine if I came when the pandemic just started and the pandemic is still going. So would I ever get a chance to play any sport? Probably not, because there was no team, there was no game, no practices, nothing. The city was like on lockdown. So what I wanted to put out there is that, like, give this children and youth opportunity, because we really don't know what's going to happen in the world. You know what I mean? And they might never going to get a chance to play any sport in their lives ever again. Because when I went to try out for Bisons, for example, I was asked for video or for like experience. I didn't have it. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not good enough to make it to the team. So that's the things that I had, right? So like, just give opportunity to the newcomers, because they might never gonna get a chance ever again. Like they might, okay, let them not play the soccer, or like let them not play the sport, but let them come and practice. Just create a safe space for them. Come practice. You know, it might be a good opportunity for them to make friends, they're open to learn, maybe learn. Let them not play, because one thing that I know is like sometimes you can accept people, but they might not be on the roster, or they might not be playing, but they can still come to practices and learn. So what I wanted to say is that, like, we had a virtual program for soccer. It wasn't like very structured only for soccer. We were just streaming on YouTube any home workout videos, and we'll just like, everyone will join us, and us also coaches, we were working out with the youth. And all it mattered was we created a safe space, and they were very engaged. And because school was online, everything was online, and they were on the screen for like every day. And us just moving our body and like, you know, we're still here, we're together in this. And that kind of made them feel like, okay, yeah, I'm not the only one that's feeling like this, you know? So like just creating a space for them voice to be heard. So I think like this pandemic thing is gonna keep going, hopefully stop soon, because I think we all are tired at this point. And it's very hard doing it virtual, but it's a good space. Like, it doesn't have to be just specifically sport, but creating a safe space for, you know, just women or girls, because there's a lot, we don't know what's going on in the household. So I think just creating that space and chatting and just having fun together would make it a lot better.
Lily, as the current athlete out of the group that's still competing with it for it, COVID-19 obviously had an impact on you as well. And I was wondering about how coaches and organizations maybe adapt their environment or coaching styles to meet the needs of an athlete that has disabilities, but maybe even more so what you would appreciate now, especially these times, recognizing that, you know, there are a number of different limitations that everybody's having to deal with in terms of then how people can coach, or the different venues and that are available to them.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think what we need to emphasize, especially now, is continuous dialogue with the athlete. When it comes to coaching athletes with disabilities, there's no one saying that you're not going to need to make some changes. So you need to be more open to trial and error, especially considering the different limitations of your athlete. So take the time and be willing to fail in order to better coach your athlete, because ultimately you want it to be a partnership. When you're coaching a para athlete, they ultimately will know their own limitations better than the coach does to a certain extent. You need to be able to listen to the athlete and tailor your coaching style around what they need. So my own coach, Karen Williams, who I believe might be on this call, would actually get in the water with me to focus on stroke mechanics, because my body, as with every other athlete's, is specific. And there are going to be little tweaks that I'm going to need to make that would be helpful to have a coach in the water for. So then she can learn what my body can do and what it can't, and how we can optimize my limitations for performance. In terms of para swimming, there's actually a joke that if you have spasms, it's actually an advantage, because when you get off the wall, you're going to be able to scare yourself because the beep is so loud. So using those limitations as a way to really make yourself perform and give yourself the opportunity to really work your way through it. And in terms of administration and maybe more organizational issues, really think about, rather than focusing on policy, really think about what your athlete needs and build your organization around the needs of the athlete. The same principles apply from coaching. Ultimately, you want to make sure that you're serving the people that you want to communicate with, because policy is wonderful. It provides outlines, and it provides ways to really start actionable change. But once you get past the policy, what do? Then you need to look at the people that you're serving and look to them, because they're the wisdoms and they're the knowledge. They're the people who will hold the best knowledge for you.
That inspiring, Anastasia.
Yeah, I'm like,
you're
can
listening
you run
again
for,
to listen
like,
at a grade 11.
Can you run for office? I'll vote for you. I'm like, yeah.
You're so
so I wanted, Anastasia, I mean, from your perspective, I mean, even when you hear Lily speak about things from, the current athlete perspective, and then you think about your experiences as well, what makes you excited for the future of sport?
Yeah, I mean, both Betty and Lily have said a ton. And you've made me both made me feel very old, to be honest. But it's okay. I enjoy having,
I don't want to tell you what that makes me feel.
No. I think Lily said it right off the bat, though. She said, you're developing fine, upstanding individuals. You're not just developing athletes, right? And so when I was skating, I was really lucky to have a few fantastic coaches. I had a few coaches that fell short as well. And I, that's obviously in my past, but I do think about it, and I realize just how unique the athlete and coach relationship truly is. You'll never get a relationship like that again in your life. Just the feedback, the trust, it's very hard to actually replicate coach and athlete in a 9-to-5 job. And when I was skating, if I could have done anything differently, especially when I was struggling to accept myself, I really attached all of my self-worth to my results. And so if I had a good race, I was on top of the world. And if I had a bad race, I would literally struggle to get out of bed. And I think what Lily had said is, coaches, please recognize that you aren't just making a speed skater or a hockey player, or a soccer player, or a swimmer. You are literally giving the building blocks for someone's life. And you start when you're 4 years old or 16 years old, or at whatever age you get into sport. It really is formative, and it forms values, and it can form the trajectory of your life. Speed skating, of course, this is so embarrassing. I went and skated like 1.5 laps, maybe 2 months ago. I was in Calgary for work. I couldn't even finish 2 laps. I'm so out of shape, but I'm still grateful. Speed skating gives me a gift every single day, because the people I learned, the values I learned, the experiences have taught me and informed me for future steps. And so, to just echo Lily, I really am excited that I think there's been a coaching shift, and a lot of people are recognizing, listen, we want to make a champion, but actually the fastest way to make a champion is to create someone that is comfortable in their own skin, comfortable in their own values, and to empower the individual to get to where they want to go, feeling very comfortable in their own skin. They're making fine, upstanding individuals and not just athletes. I think that's the quickest way to success.
We speak about it from a coaching perspective and kind of the evolution of coaching styles and the means in terms of communicating with athletes, everything. But how about from a parent perspective, Anastasia? What would you say? Because much as we talk about coaching and the need maybe for evolution there, but obviously we know the impact that parents can have on a person's sporting life as well.
Yeah. And Betty, I invite you to, like, obviously you're coaching, so please jump in on this. But I always feel like it's such a contradictory. But if you give up your need to have something that you really want, it's actually the fastest way to get it. So I am an incredibly competitive person. I was lucky to be intrinsically motivated. Speed skating is a tough sport, lap after lap, skating around in a circle. And I was lucky to just have, whatever, the gumption or the makeup to want to do the training and compete. But I really do believe at times that there is too much focus on winning. And I think we have a tendency to be afraid of failure. And failure is the greatest way to learn, and it is the greatest way to learn and grow into who you want to be and the athlete you want to be, the human you want to be. And so to parents, I do get asked this a lot, like, oh, is my kid going to make it? Do they have what it takes to make the NHL? Is their skating skills strong enough? And 99.9% of people don't make it to the show or to the top level, and I certainly was very privileged to get to compete at a high level. But for parents, it's like allow your kid to have fun first and foremost. Fun is the only thing that matters. Obviously live your values, be true, be a good person, but sports should be fun, even at the highest level. So allow them to have fun, and failure is not fatal. Like, don't be afraid of failure. Do you know how many people, the most successful people fail over again? And so I just think there's too much of an emphasis on wins and losses and not the process. And again, to echo Lily, like, really recognize that sport is a vehicle for self exploration and actualization, and to become the best version of yourself, regardless of the scoreboard. And usually if you do become the best version of yourself, the scoreboard takes care of itself. Betty, jump in on
that's that. Right. From your perspective, from a coach's perspective.
Yeah, if I'm wrong, you can tell me.
No, you nailed it. I'm not going to lie to you. It's really good. I'm like so inspired.
Well, this is is it Sunday? I feel like we're between Christmas and New Year's now with these new lockdowns. Like, I don't even know what day it is. It's Sunday, right? It's a nice Sunday to be with you folks.
Right, absolutely. And we continue on. We have questions from the audience as well, which we always look forward to. Wayne, we've got some great ones. So we're going to get to those in just a moment. But first, we want to take a quick break, very quick, and we'll hear from our title sponsor, Bison Transport.
So I was at the top of the track, and you can just see going into corner one is just, it dives down, and you can't see anything else. And you just know, okay, this is gonna be intense. And went down, it felt like I got thrown around in a garbage can. That's the best way I could describe it. And just the pressures are really, really tough, and they just drag you down to the bottom of the sled. You can't see anything. We'll have the maple leaf there. Nice. With our number. Or is it number maple leaf? Something like that. Yeah. You never know what you're going to be great at until you actually try everything. And just because there's maybe not socially accepted to do something, it doesn't matter. You got to still try that, because it could bring you to the Olympics, or it could bring you to wherever you need to go, and you're going to be really happy.
So we hope everyone at this point has been enjoying the conversation so far, has been inspired by this, been able to take away something from this. And we have some great questions that have been submitted from the audience. So I wanted to make sure, even with time constraints, that we were able to get some of them in. And so the question that I'm going to start with you, Lily, again, being in school currently, but how do you feel that school phys ed programs can contribute to more inclusivity?
Firstly, let me say, school phys ed programs, as much as we try in the status quo, are horrible. I know that teachers will try their best, but we really do need to work up to a better standard. And what I think we can start with is, as I've mentioned throughout my sort of talking points here, is start with your student, because your student is going to have unique abilities. They may have a visual impairment, they may have a physical impairment, they may have an intellectual impairment, and you always want to start there and establish where their abilities are to help build the curriculum around them. So when I played hockey within my school phys ed program, what I ended up doing was I was just the goalie. So I would sit in the net with my massive chair, basically taking up the whole net with my hands on a tee, and just try my best to block with my little stick. And it was the same thing in elementary school when we would play soccer. I would always be the D person, the defense person, with bouncing the ball off of my chair. And that worked fine, but it didn't really incorporate my unique ability. So if you want to create a better program, you really want to think about what are some universal abilities that we can help train in our students? So physical literacy, as Betty has mentioned, and also what is the unique ability of our student and how can we work to create physical literacy in the context of their own abilities? So for me, that could have been doing track and field and wheeling. And I never got to do track and field, really, because I didn't get that opportunity. And the one time I didn't get to compete in any meets because there weren't any actual places for me to go. So really thinking about how can we develop physical literacy around the capability of our student. And this applies for any student. This applies for any person participating in these programs. Really thinking about how we can adapt our programs and make sure that their needs are being met while also developing the developmental skills and giving them those same milestones in a way that actually works.
I know that, Betty, for you, you're studying recreation management and community development, but I'd love to know from, somebody that's in the coaching field right now, but deals with athletes outside of the school hours, obviously. What do you see that you think could maybe help within those school hours, maybe get, whether it be more people involved or just feel as if they're more included in the sports spectrum?
Yeah, I think maybe, are you asking in the school hours or outside?
Yeah, just kind of continuing on from Lily's, just when you look at the question was about the phys ed programs within schools, but I just think that since you have so much time with athletes outside of the school hours, how do you think that maybe things could be made better for them within the school hours?
Yeah, I think maybe some classes should have workshops about specific needs in sport, because sometimes, you might have one person from your team or from whatever team you're coaching, one person that is a newcomer, one person, that is a special need kid, but how do you deal with those people? You're not only, the whole focus shouldn't be just about just soccer, some kids have special needs kids, some people have language barriers, some people have trauma. How do you engage with those kids? What do they really need? Why are they there? So asking questions and having, opening your ears to listen to their story, because those kids are there for a reason. If there was something else that would make them feel better or give them a better, a bright life, or a bright, if they can find happiness somewhere else, they wouldn't be there. So ask your athletes, how are you feeling? Where are you from? What's your name? Welcoming them when they're new to the team. Because I think that's the first step, what people see. if you make it to the team, or let's say it's your first time going to tryouts, what are you expecting? I look at people's face. If they are not welcoming me, I'm gonna think that something is wrong with me, because that's how they're making me feel. So maybe like within the school, having workshops, it might be in phys ed department, it might be in community development department, having different workshops within school, or even different organizations run different workshops that are free, or even like if it costs, or people might get certificate for it, right? And people putting it on their resume might look good if they want to get hired somewhere else. So like maybe teachers or professors putting those workshops out there. Oh, there is this workshop if you want to join, or even the school running the workshops. I know schools have so many people with so many experiences, and them doing it and giving the knowledge to their students so they can apply it back on the community would help the athletes move forward.
Anastasia, one question that was, how do we engage more females in leadership positions when they say no, or they feel as if they're not ready? How do you feel that, we can start to get or continue to get more women involved and empowered to try for those positions?
Yeah, I mean, specifically from sport, I think that there is a tremendous amount of power in engaging athletes just, on and off the pitch, right? I think of my partner, she played soccer for a million years, and she's transitioned, she just retired and is hoping to find herself in a leadership position, in the coming months, in the coming years, in admin or whatever she decides to do. But certainly I think it starts just with conversations, but consistent conversations of saying your value is more than just what you can do for this team or in your own sports career. Networking, providing really specific opportunities for education. I think if I'm thinking about speed skating, right? What can Speed Skating Canada do for Manitoba speed skating? Is there synergies there to collectively empower and provide training for obviously athletes that maybe want to become coaches or officials or admin, or the CEO of the NSO, Susan, of course, was a pretty formidable speed skater herself. So I think it starts with really early on conversations, but then to get back to EDI, right? I think so many people see equity, diversity, and inclusion as like a finish line or an end goal, and it really doesn't have an end goal. It's just, it should be interwoven in everything that you do as an organization and how you live your life. And so just ensuring that, inclusion, diversity, equity is within organizational values and decisions, and then specifically offering opportunities consistently. Consistency for those that want to actually, hopefully transition into something outside of just being an athlete while staying in the sports system. You have to consistently provide opportunities, training, and communicate those, because our dropout rates of people that retire and then just retire with 24 years of their knowledge or sporting knowledge in their brain, it's not right. And so I think it's just providing that really clear pathway for people forward to ensure that they're still engaged in the sporting system as well.
I want to say one comment that's been sent through, and it was directed to you, Anastasia, to continue bringing your voice and other voices to life. It's been amazing to see how far you have come, and proud to follow your journey. Now, I don't have a name attached to this comment.
Is that my mom? It might be my mom. That's not my mom. But thank you. I'm very grateful to hear that. And I do have speed skating to thank for everything. So yeah, sport has definitely made my life much better than just skating around in a circle. And I hope it can give that privilege to other people too.
Well, and bringing your voice and other voices, obviously, as I mentioned in the beginning, the podcast, we'll give it a plug again, that if you aren't listening to it, that you should absolutely for it, and to be able to follow along as well as get ready for the Olympics, and you continue to tell all the stories of high performance athletes and bring that experience to it and a voice and a perspective that's obviously very different from someone's like myself that did not compete at an elite level. So you have a different perspective in the interactions. It's so enjoyable to listen to. So highly recommend it. But as we hit the 7 o'clock hour, I also want to 7 o'clock Central. I also want to say that for Betty and for Lily as well, I mean, continuing to use your voice. Well, it's been so inspiring. And I know, Anastasia, you're based out of Toronto right now, but for someone like myself that lives in Winnipeg and that is a part of the sports here too, to be able to see the impact and hear impact that you two are having, not just right now, but you can tell going forward as well. And I don't want to harp on it, Lily, but you know, you're still in high school. But when I think about it, it's incredibly inspiring, the impact that both of you are making on our community here, on inclusivity, on getting more people involved in sports and helping to make a difference. So continue to use your voices as well. They are making a difference and they are very much appreciated. So I do want to say, unfortunately, that we have to wrap things up. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to all of the questions here, but I want to thank everyone for joining us for this 4th session of the Bison Transport Sport Leadership Series. We hope you enjoyed tonight's session. I think it's been fantastic and took away some valuable information from our guests, different ideas as maybe if you are a coach, an athlete, if you are in administration or in the education system, different ideas and different perspectives that perhaps you can look to try to incorporate, or maybe it's given you pause to think about the way that you've been approaching things and some different ideas as to how we can continue to make sport more inclusive for all. Tonight's session will be available on demand on Sport Manitoba's YouTube channel or at sportmanitoba.ca. And we hope that you will join us again on February the 15th at 7 p.m. for the 5th session of the Bison Transport Sport Leadership Series. Don't forget to join us on Zoom for a networking session right now after we sign off. The Zoom link can be found in your confirmation email or on Sport Manitoba's website. So thank you very much to all of you for spending some of your Sunday night with us here this evening. Take care, and we look forward to seeing you again in February.